Welcome to Divisive Issues, a foul-mouthed, spoiler-filled comic book podcast where we talk about comic books. I'm Sly.
I'm Ryan.
I'm Phil.
And I'm Darryl. And we made it to the end of the year.
Wow.
Yes.
Who knew?
Another year older, another year wiser,
No, if I was wise, I wouldn't be on this podcast anymore.
another year edgier.
Yeah, man.
Just like last year, we're bringing back issues, which is a format where we have Ryan and Darryl read one of the
No,
comics.
Phil and Darryl.
Phil and Darryl,
I'm
sorry.
Phil.
Ryan has to
Wait,
read one
Ryan,
again.
read along with us then. You're now part of us.
Phil and Darryl have to read a comic book that me, Ryan, and Joe read before they came on. Mm-hmm. And we picked a doozy for this one, Wanted.
Yeah, wanted more like I don't want it.
Yeah.
Unwanted.
I also didn't listen to the original episode that you guys did, so I didn't know really much about it, except as I was reading, I ran into things that I'm like, oh, I remember Ryan and Sly telling me about this.
Yeah, so don't be like don't be like Phil. By the way, before you read, before you listen to this episode, read. Damn it! Look, before you listen to this episode, listen to our previous episodes because we're not going to summarize the plot necessarily.
There's going to be a link to the Wanted episode in the show notes.
Yeah, we're not going to summarize the plot again. We listen to the Joe episode with the summary there. Then listen to this one if you want to hear Darryl and Phil be horrified as we were back then.
Yeah, so stop listening now. Beep.
Or if you don't care and you don't want to listen, I will summarize it for you very succinctly, and I'm going to quote Wanted itself. Fuck you, cocksucker. You take that fucking crowbar and kill this motherfucker. I swear to God, I'll fucking kill you myself. And who is saying that? Well, it's not a person. It's a man's penis telling him to kill a Superman with Down syndrome.
Named Fuckwit.
So I went back and listened to our old episode because I was not going to reread this book.
I didn't read it either. Fuck that shit.
I can't believe it. I can't believe you fucking.
And basically, the elevator pitch is that some guy's dad dies, and he is entered into a secret society of supervillains, and then they basically just like rape and murder everybody, and it's very bad.
So I actually thought there were some interesting ideas, like on the very core of it, like the idea that superheroes or supervillains like team up and erase superheroes from having ever existed.
But the funny thing is, Mark Millar did the exact same idea already in Old Man Logan.
Yeah.
And then yeah, and it's Mark Millar and J.G. Jones, and just Mark Millar. I think this is the most Mark Millar book.
It is the worst thing I've ever.
No, the most
read.
Mark Millar is probably Unfunnies.
No, I feel like Unfunnies is like the really dark, like almost call the police on him, and this is just like this is edgelord, the pure personification of it.
I guess this is more the extreme version of all his other stories, while Unfunnies is him trying to be gross and disgusting. Like
Yeah.
Yeah.
This I think he was like trying to be cool for this one.
Yeah.
I actually literally almost just stopped and was like, I'm not doing this for the episode. Like I'll pretend I read it. Like I can't continue with
Oh
this 'cause
yeah,
it's so bad.
Shitler or whatever his name was.
No shithead.
Whose Clayface made of the shit of all the villains of
And it's like
history.
I know
Hitler.
with that kind of stuff, like he is trying to intentionally parody supervillains and stuff, but
It doesn't make it good to read.
it doesn't make you good to read. And that's the thing is like again at its core, I'm like there are some actual thoughts that go on here. Like
Yeah.
there is
But
like
that's why you can praise it. There is some thinking behind, like, in the depths of these pages.
When I listened back to the episode, I found myself getting mad at past me, and I actually out loud without thinking said, "Oh, mid 2016 Ryan, you sweet summer child," because I was like, "No, there's some good ideas in this, and like I think some of this is okay." And then I'm thinking like, "Wow, that's what it was like before the election and before a year of Trump." And then I'm thinking, I'm like, "No, fuck you. Nobody deserves this." So, Phil, to make sure you read it, how does this book end?
It ends with an Eminem ripoff of the main character staring at the reader saying, "This is my face while I fuck you in the ass."
Yes. Okay, so you've read it.
I did read it. I it was actually a point where I wanted to quit, and then I got to a point where I'm like, I just have to see how this keeps going. Like the last two issues I wanted to keep reading out of like a morbid curiosity.
Well, it's almost because the last two issues enter very into much like a comic book territory where it's like the main villain's hatching his plan and like taking over the rest of the villain organization, so it has at least like a plot to it rather than just like my life sucks, my girlfriend sucks, my best friend's banging my girlfriend.
Yeah, it was a weird. The whole idea is like it's a weird like. The book is talking to the reader, basically telling you, "Hey, you're a nerdy piece of shit, right?
Yeah.
You probably are weak, and you have asthma, and your girlfriend is fucking someone else." So I was like that too, but now I'm a cool badass who just rapes people. Like it's like I just it feels really weird. Like,
but it's weird because it's not real.
Good.
It's not real. Him being like, look how cool I am. It's like you're a fictional character.
And also like if you take it like what is it trying to say? Like, oh,
Yeah.
you should drop your everyday life and fucking murder and rape
and
people?
murder everyone, because that's the thing is like he's like I used to be an ass, like an idiot, and the idea is instead of being bullied, I'm going to be the bully. But he takes it to the extreme of like genocide. Like, oh, I was a dead end. I had a dead end job. Now I kill planets for a living. It's like that's not what. Like, is that's. I just couldn't get. I couldn't get it.
And also like me and Ryan and Joe really said. It wasn't like he was a nice person before all this. Like he was a piece of shit before all this.
That's my favorite.
He
He has a line in the first issue where he's like, "I'm not a bad person." It's like, yeah, okay.
He's like a racist. Like he hates his
Black
he
boss.
Calls, like the Italians that follow him cholo fucks and shit
Yep.
like that. Like he's a racist. He fucking dresses like he has a fucking.
He has
Like,
white
he's
dreads.
supposed to be a nerdy guy, but he dresses like he's trying to be
Like
black.
he's trying to be like Eminem, kind of.
Yeah, he is. It's also funny. I thought how this book is so vulgar and terrible and offensive. But whenever he talks about his boss, he's like my African American boss. It's like Mark Millar's like you can't go there. Can't use racial.
Well, it's just like how the main villain, everyone else in the villain society, like they exile him and stuff because they're like he goes too far. You know, he eats people, and I think he has sex with children. Where it's like everyone else is like, but like murdering and torturing and raping people is fine. It's just like don't do it to children. Jesus
Murdering
Christ.
so far, like to the point where the people are like, yeah, I probably killed 1 million people in my life. Like they go to other realities and just kill everyone. That like,
Yeah.
there's no way that these people can act like normal humans.
That's why it's so
after that.
crazy. This book is torn between like two different styles of thoughts. It kind of wants to embrace nihilism. At the same point, it's trying to make like it's discussing what it's like to not have a relationship with your dad. Like it mediates between the two way too much, where he's like he cares a lot about his dad and wants to get revenge for him. Now on the other hand, he's just killing a bunch of other dads, and he's like whatever. Like
Yeah, it's really
These
they're
guys.
such sociopaths, like to the point where they would not be able to even have. I don't think they could have.
why
like,
would they
normal-
work together? Why would they trust each other when they're constantly doing this to innocent people? Like, why not do it to each other if they know
Well,
they can?
that's why I pointed out the fucking idea of villains is cooler in premise, and then you actually start writing it out. Because how are you gonna trust any villain of this kind of shit? Like
Not to mention the fact that they were saying there was originally in the early days of the heroes, like there was like 12 villains for every hero, which I know is a thing in comics, but in reality, I think if random people had superpowers, there would be more heroes than villains. I think most people wouldn't be like, I'm gonna go mass murder now.
No,
Like,
well, it depends on what you mean by villain. If a lot of them are mass murderers, but they're probably like small-time criminals, which is another reason.
I guess so.
But the small-time criminals aren't going to join up with Red Skull and shit like that. They're
Yeah.
not going to join up the
Also,
genociders.
I know this is probably not the criticism that anyone else had, but like, what bothered me almost the most was how he was like Midnighter in the sense that no matter what the action scene was, he just shot everyone in the head. Like,
Yeah.
he fights every supervillain.
That's actually one of Sly's big critiques in the first time we did
Yeah,
it. Is
that's
like
it.
they develop all these powers and everyone's weak to gun.
Yeah, and
so
also
you
like,
did say it.
there's like the fight scenes aren't interesting at all because of it. Because
Yeah.
that's why the movie was good to just get rid of everything except the gunplay, because that's all that matters in the fucking comic.
Yeah, literally, like there are. If you have every, he literally shoots every supervillain in the universe basically in the head, and it's like there has to be someone who does just get shot
yeah,
in
someone
the head, like,
that's impervious to bullets.
yeah, or Magneto, or like someone who's faster than him, or someone who can.
Well, there
anything.
was that one guy that could absorb powers, but then his power ran out and he fell. To
Oh,
his
that
death.
was the dumbest fucking thing. It's half a second ago as you came here. It's like Mark Millar, you are just such a shitty writer. Like I can't. It really reminds me of Midnighter, where it's like I can't write, so the plot just I'm gonna make it go forward no matter if it makes sense or not.
Do you mean Nemesis, not Midnighter?
Oh, yeah.
Because Midnighter had an excuse. He could see
Yeah.
all possible outcomes.
I meant Nemesis. I meant Nemesis.
And also Midnighter, I don't mind as much when at least it's not mean spirited and it's people you like winning. Like Midnighter is at least a decent person.
Yeah.
But like when it's like Nemesis or the Killer, you want these people to die and they refuse to die, so it just makes you mad.
What a cool supervillain name, the Killer.
Yeah, I think I'm criticizing Midnighter too because I know you have a brain that can figure out every possibility, but guess what? Against Superman, every possibility is still you getting fucking killed. Like you can calculate that all you want, but he punches you in the face and you're dead.
Yeah.
But I know you probably can't let it go, but I really don't mind it as much when at least it isn't just trying to make the reader feel like, oh, look at this character, he's getting shit on.
Yeah, no, I agree. And actually, that's why at issue 4, when Darryl was saying like the plot actually does something, it was still like, oh no, how is the main character who's a piece of shit gonna beat these other pieces of shit? And it's like I don't care actually. Like,
yeah,
I don't want any of them to win. I want them all to die, but they won't.
Yeah, like when people talk about the downside of voting, like doing a lesser of two evils type of thing, like this really is a lesser of two evils, where it's like no matter what, you're going to get murdered by these people.
And at least when we were talking about it, Joe, Ryan, and I made a consensus that we think that actually the actual bad guy is better than fucking the secret society, because the Killer wants to have a secret society where they just keep raping people, while at least the actual bad guys want to have them be out in the open again, which I think is at least more honest.
Because they would then they were saying the bad side is the superheroes.
Sly, don't agree with Nazis.
I agree. I'm not going to be Nazi, but we were saying like even between the two bad sides they pick, we preferred. We didn't necessarily even prefer the bad guy we're supposed to root for. Like
no, but they were gonna destroy the whole planet. They had like continent busting weapons and stuff.
But I don't know how much better it's how Secret Society where we just keep raping and murdering people.
That's true, and it was crazy too.
It doesn't matter. It's all terrible.
Yeah, and it's crazy too how the Secret Society is so powerful that they can go into like a public
police station,
kill everyone, and then just be like, "I'm in the fraternity," and they're like, "Sorry, sir." Like this isn't. I think in reality, humans would just rather fight and die than.
Yeah, that's not sustainable.
Yeah, it's
and
not.
like we were talking before, the bad guys wouldn't just like go along. I mean, they did end up betraying each other and stuff. But I don't know how
after 40 years.
Yeah, I think it's 18.
Whatever.
So the debate that we had when we first read this book many moons ago was the three of us tried to decide what is the point of this book? What are you supposed to get out of it?
You're supposed to feel bad about your pathetic existence and be like, I'm gonna go be a tough guy, and I don't know though, because it's again like it's not to stand up for yourself; it's to like hurt other people.
This was something I was mentioning in the Discord chat where I'm like I was so torn with what exactly, because it's almost like a deconstruction of toxic masculinity, because I posted multiple examples throughout the comic of things where he's like, you know, they called me a pussy, or they called me weak, or I was supposed to be stronger, and he repeatedly drives his point home, like, don't be a bitch, don't be a bunch of other things. And it's about being manly and standing up for yourself and not caring about your mom, but caring about your dad. And it's like, it's almost like, again, this deconstruction of what it means to be a man, which I guess at its core, like Mark Millar believes, is to rape and murder people. But it's like, I don't think Mark Millar's smart enough to do a deconstruction and to willingly, like, I think because he makes so much stuff where he's like, this is cool, like, this is obviously a cool thing to do from reading his other works, that it's like, I think he just thinks this is cool.
Yeah, I wonder, like, there is a possibility that last part where he's just like, fuck you, I'm gonna go continue being a piece of shit, like, maybe it is the message that this
because he does say, like, this life is terrible and I shouldn't be living it. I'd rather be like a prick than an asshole. Whatever.
Yeah,
like
he says like his dad abandoned him. Like he's propping up his dad, but his dad abandoned him. But what Joe was like pointed out that he's glad that he's like, fuck that all that shit I just said. Whatever. Just I want to keep raping people because that makes it basically makes the book feel like the book is saying we're trying to have a point, but never mind. We're scrapping that. We're just raping people.
Yeah, like he could have done a better. Like
but then why even make the point other than for it to be a funny like twist, like, haha, look, he was gonna try and be good, but he's not. Awesome, go kill people.
I think it's just really a joke. Like, you think the people who are like, this is so rad and so cool, he's raping all these people, they're like, whoa, he's changing his mind. Oh, what, you psyched me up, bro, you got me. Yeah, now let's keep raping more people.
That is the look on your face while you're fucking me in the ass.
Yeah. Oh, I do agree. I am a loser for buying comics.
I do like the deconstruction of a lot of the villain stuff. Like, I do like how shithead is just clay faced and like
That's not deconstruction. That's just stupid.
it's like satire. It's satire. It's satire.
Yeah, it's satire. Like instead of Calendar Man, it was it Puzzle Man?
I recognize a lot of stuff where I'm like, oh, he's just because they also had Batman and Robin tied up, and they're like, he's like, oh, because they made them think they were just on the TV show or whatever. That kind of stuff's kind of funny, but it's like it doesn't carry the book at all. Like,
Yeah.
It's also really weird that in between all these things about like you have to be more masculine and stronger, and you have to say like fuck you to your teachers. It has instances where it's like, look at funny like comic book stuff. Like here's like obviously this is like Poison Ivy or this is like Martian Manhunter, and it's I don't know, like is that manly stuff? Like if you're going with the complete masculinity, which they reference, that's like the main character feels bad that he never got into a fight when he was younger and that he didn't play basketball, so I guess like fighting people in sports are two really manly things. That you're trying to like convey this through a comic book that's about superheroes and supervillains, and the supervillains have to dress up in costumes to interact with each other. It's such a dumb comparison.
yeah,
of things.
when they were at that like the convention or whatever, and it's like you have these people in like spandex and stuff with like weird hats and stuff because they're supervillains. It's like this just doesn't. I can't go along with this.
It feels like it's really torn between Mark Millar wanting to do something like Old Man Logan, and then at the same time, it's like he just watched Fight Club, and he's like, this is perfect because so much of it, tit for tat, is Fight Club.
I think I compare it to Fight Club is what it wants to be. Like Fight Club is like the edgelord with like an actual plot and point. And
Because that whole thing was about how patriarchy has gotten like toxic, and that a lot of men don't feel like they have a purpose, especially without fathers in their lives. Which like this almost tries to do, but it goes like really wild with it, especially with the Oedipal implications of how he's banging the same woman that his father bangs.
Oh,
Yeah.
God. Yeah, it's like he saw Fight Club, and instead of the message of like, oh, that's a deconstruction, he was like, man, what a cool dude, Tyler.
What if we should be fighting people and stuff?
Fight Club also has the like the talking about like the ego and the id type, like your animalist instincts, but this is just like it's not just animal instincts, it's like just cruelty. Like they don't feel animal. Like is there an animalistic sense to using a continent buster on another planet? Like I don't think that's like the raw like Fight Club is like the fight or flight right in front of you, like you're fist fighting another person, not like should I just go kill another continent today? Like I feel like it's really different.
Well, that's why I felt like he was torn.
And that would also explain why it is such a disparity between it goes with the superhero concept, but then it has them use guns to kill everyone because it's trying to just go for a regular kind of visceral action story, but then it's trying to tack that on to the superhero concept. And like you said, you can't have supervillains be visceral because it is visceral to punch a guy and shoot a guy maybe, but not visceral to nuke a planet.
You can't have like classic supervillains be visceral and stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
Where you're trying to be like, hey, here's like this alternate universe version of Superman, the rest of them. Also, I really want to point out that the writing is very Fight Clubby in the beginning, where it's like this is me and Lisa lying in bed not having sex.
That's a good point. Really good point.
Yeah, it was
think
just
about
like it's just so obvious.
Also, I love how Mark Millar is just always the main character as a cuck.
Well, this is getting into Mark Millar, our meta canon, but I
think he's a cuck. Yeah, just say it, Darryl.
He's trying to tell cucks to take back their lives.
Yeah, but
like,
you know
maybe
what?
he feels like he was cuckolded and he took back his life, and maybe he feels like an emotional resonance with people that keep getting cuckolded.
I get the idea, like, it's one of those things like where again there could be something here of like he's a wimp who doesn't stand up for himself, and then he begins to stand up for himself, but instead he's just like, I'm just going to become a complete sociopath serial killer.
Yeah.
Like it goes from it just immediately goes to such an insane level that it's
and even
like,
when he was a wimp, that's the biggest like obvious failure is even when he was a wimp, he wasn't likable. Like you never feel bad for him because he's such a dick to everyone, even before he becomes a fucking murderer.
Yes, it's exactly the problem where he's like, I'm not a bad guy, but he like just constant judgments about people, and he's treating everyone like an asshole. It's also tough because the Mark Millar's universe is always everyone's kind of an asshole, and if you're not, it's because you're going to die.
I feel like a lot of this is like a lot of the narration was like Mark Millar's mind. I was reading like when he was talking about in the first issue eating that like ginger crusted salmon sandwich, and he's like, I'm doing it for the past 180 days because I don't want to be in the same grind as everyone else. And like, as if for him, he's probably seen that and been like, no one would ever eat that unless they were just trying to be different than anyone else. And I'm like, that sounds good. Like, there are people can enjoy things without just trying to like be hipster, you know. Like, but I think Mark Millar's mind, he's like, no one would do things different than me unless they're just posers.
Which is also like a really weird thing how he brought up. I mean, I guess this portrays back into trying to be a man, how he was like a vegetarian and he didn't want to like eat any meat.
Yeah.
And then he just has to start killing. He kills like, what was it, 17,000 animals in 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And it's like, what do you... I don't know what he's trying to do with all this outside of being like, I guess it's manly to eat meat.
Yeah. That is I think that's where he was going with it.
Yeah, like, I guess you're getting cucked if you're a vegetarian.
He's doing, you know, Alex Jones thing. You don't want to eat red meat. You got to be a man.
Yeah.
So I want to, as Darryl said before, we've started a Discord. That link's going to be in the show notes too. But as Darryl was reading through this, one of our listeners, William, started talking about how this is an important book to revisit because it's basically like a proto-alt-right guide to how to treat people. And I just want to get your thoughts on that for a second, because I love the idea of like so much of what this book is I feel like our main character, Wesley, or whatever the hell his name is just like trying to trigger libs the whole time.
Yeah. No, I kind of agree.
Is that kind of the point of all edgelords though, to try to trigger the libs? In the sense?
That's true.
The people are too sensitive. That's always the argument, like, you're too sensitive. Like, I'm just trying to be edgy here.
Didn't Captain SS say like,
I have the line right here. Yeah, you say fascist like it's some kind of insult, but people love fascists. Man, you ever meet a woman who fantasizes about being tied up and raped by a liberal?
Oh wow.
Come
Oof. The
on.
edge. Ow. That's the other thing I wanted to bring up is that I totally believe it, because also Millar treats women like shit in this book constantly. They're either cheating on him or they're unlikable, like unsexable bitches like his boss at the beginning of the book.
Or they're fucking his protagonist.
How many good female characters are there in any Millar books we've read? Like, the only other female in Old Man Logan was Spider-Woman, who was a villain.
There was that one woman trying to protect the child in one panel in Nemesis.
I think this book only had out of like every supervillain, there was just like one woman. It was just Fox.
There was Poison Ivy in one page.
Oh, because every named character was a man.
Yep.
Yeah.
Except Fox.
So, Sly, when you revisited this, was there anything that was new to you or that you thought differently of?
No.
I was on the money.
So, I had one thing that stood out to me when I revisited it, and maybe it's just a sign of the times because this was like 2008 or whatever, but I guess because I had such a higher tolerance for this kind of thing a year and a half ago. But when you guys were talking about the African American comment, where like he doesn't say any like racial slurs, but he throws around the F word a lot.
He actually does call the Spanish people spics, but he won't call. He won't use.
He also
okay,
uses chinks too, and
So,
like
I forgot about
and
those.
the Nazi guy is like Jews.
Well, it's kind of a good commentary on like modern races, because a lot of modern races just say, I didn't say the N-word, I just said black people should work more and shit like that.
Yeah, exactly. He knows the N-word would probably be too far, but he can make allusions to raping children, so that's fine. It's also different. I feel like this book's in a weird place because it was made in 2003, 4 years after Fight Club.
Yeah, 2003 was when the F-word was more commonly used. Eminem was still big back then.
No, yeah, that's the thing. I don't want to say it's okay back then, but it's one of those things where this book wouldn't have been seen as problematic as, like, how William had mentioned. Now, when you read it, and this is literally, it does feel like alt-right propaganda, where it's like, look how awesome it is to do something like taking out a gun and shooting people. Because the first issue ends with him, Wesley, the main character, shooting the wings off flies. And then the doctor says something around the lines of like you just got your manhood back, or now you like, doesn't that feel good to like shoot a gun? Like it's really kind of disconcerting.
As you describe it, it does feel like there might be a parody buried in here. It's weird because I don't want to give Mark Millar that much credit. That's the problem.
Yeah, nor do I.
Is he smart enough?
But it's such a common idea. These are all very stereotypical ideas of what manhood is. So like it's kind of
Maybe he buys into all that.
Yeah, because the thing is, I don't want to say it's a deconstruction or a satire because there's no reckoning, there's no punishment. It's like
There isn't always though in deconstruction.
yeah,
Yeah, that's true.
But it's one of those things where it's feeding into that. It's one of those things where people are saying, I'm being ironically a Nazi, where they've seen all these Nazi things and they're making everyone feel bad. And it's like, it doesn't matter at this point if you're being ironic or not. You're still a piece of shit.
Yeah, like if you're arguing the Holocaust wasn't real, and then you're like, but it's funny to do it because people get triggered doing it. It's the same kind of thing here, where it's like, it's funny to be like, you should be a man, you should be manly and stuff, and shoot your dad.
Well, I do have to say that it still works on people, because a year ago, a year ago, somebody commented this and Darryl screenshotted it and sent it to us. LOL, this is nothing like the fucking movie. It's a million times better. Super funny, and love how Wesley is a supervillain.
When I saw that, I had been reading the comments on the site. I was looking at this, and a lot of people were like, so much better than the movie. Like, there were a lot of people saying how much they liked it, and I was in awe. Just like,
there's one person saying it's like Universal would never allow like what the original wanted was about. It's like, no,
they're actually smart. They know how to make money. They don't know how to make their audience.
They're not going to feed to your deplorable tastes.
I also want to say that the homophobia we're taking out of context because Marshall Mathers is the main character, so it's like it makes more sense.
And like I said, it was 2003. This is back when George Bush was running on being anti-gay marriage. Like it was still like a different world compared to where we are now.
A much shittier world.
It was much shittier. I'm not saying it's a good word, but it just was.
It's also bad now, but it is.
Yeah.
What a bad book.
Yeah.
Yeah, what a bad
This
book.
is one of those where it's like, it was almost, I was hating myself for being on the cusp of trying to defend certain things. Because there's just so many instances where like he's like, man, now I get to hang out with my dad's friends. I'm cool now. Where I'm like, this is a very interesting, that's a good comment. Where it's like, do you only feel cool if like that the real men, the manly men, that they approve of you, kind of a thing. But at the same time, it's wrapped up in this terrible story.
It shows how much more I wanted to be the optimist back then about this kind of stuff, because I was listening back and I was like, I'm defending this book conceptually a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember this was like my most hated book it's still to now.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I thought that I was way harder on it. When I listen back, like, I'm hard on it, but I'm not like, fuck this fucking trash. Like,
even last week you were like, it's my least favorite book. Like that's how you reframed it even last week.
Yep.
I also want to say that to defend it, there's something really good when Shithead kills the professor. He says, "Death by dysentery."
No, he just immerses him in poop and he dies by being pooped.
And then they kill him by Cloroxing him. Like, I really... It has to be a parody,
and
right?
I did laugh again at a joke that I brought up last time we covered this,
one.
where his boss goes to him. It's at work, and he's like, "What are you looking at? Smallwhitedicks.com?"
KKK.com.
The one I laughed at is when the main character asks, "Who killed my father?" and the guy goes, "Lee Harvey Oswald." And then,
No, but then it turns out the dad killed JFK.
He was the one that killed JFK. Where I'm like, okay, that's funny.
Yeah, I agree.
All right,
like that.
You gotta stop defending this book.
Okay, so
Yeah, no, it's very shitty, but there's a few funny parts in it.
so to wrap it up, do either of you guys think that Unfunnies doesn't count? Is this the worst Mark Millar book you've read?
Yeah.
Yes. Wait, I hate Nemesis so much.
No.
There is no way Nemesis
Everyone else
is
in
worse
the
than
world
this.
tried to be good except Nemesis, even though like Nemesis wins in the end, but like everyone else was trying to
No,
be
but
good.
that makes it worse because this is at least a parody. That was like he's like, I'm serious. Wouldn't it be so cool if he could just do anything he wanted?
Also, he
I
rigged the
don't
girl's
know.
womb to explode. What does this book have? I guess someone drowning in fecal matter.
Yeah, I think Nemesis is still my least. I don't know. This is really hard.
Oh my God.
I would say this just because it's like so blatantly edgelord, whereas like Nemesis was just trying to outsmart the fake Gordon.
Also, I think this is longer.
It is.
And that just...
Yeah, you know what? This is worse. It took a long time to read this shit.
So,
Yeah, it
okay.
did.
Are we done talking about Wanted?
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm wanted
Worst book
out
I've
of my
ever read
life.
in my life.
I can't remember if I made that joke.
You did. You did.
It bears repeating.
I really... So, once we get to least favorites of 2017, I wonder.
No, but Wanted doesn't count, because that's
Oh,
a back
shit.
issue. It's special. So, I want to enter into our final segment of the year, where we look back at the year and we pick our favorite and least favorite, probably books, but if there's a movie or TV show that's especially egregious, we'll talk about that too. So I had a really, really hard time picking my favorite good book. And you guys are going to get mad at me for this, I think.
It was hard for me to pick too.
Yeah,
Wanted.
there are books that we did that I really, really loved, like Flintstones and like the Green Lantern stuff. But when I look back at the episodes that I like most really enjoyed, like the books I most enjoyed reading, I try to go more for the ones that surprised me with how good they were. Where like I knew Flintstones was going to be great. So I wanted to pick the Max because it was really, really surprising to me. But I think I'm going to pick Midnighter.
Oh my god.
And the reason why Midnighter is my favorite is because it was recommended to us by a listener, actually by a couple listeners. David and John both recommended it to me. And because we're so steeped in like shitty edgelord culture now in 2017, and like everything is like triggering limbs and all this nonsense that we were talking about, like all the Wanted stuff, seeing like an edgelord book that leaned into how stupid and funny it was. And Sly has really started to convince me that, especially in the Authority episodes, how rewarding and visceral it feels nowadays to watch bad guys get like super fucking murdered.
Yeah.
And there's just something about that book that I expected to hate it, and I liked it so much that I think it's my favorite. I think it's my favorite.
You do get to
of
see
the year.
you do get to see Prometheus guy's face stomped in, which is pretty
Yeah. And there was just something very visceral and fun, and like that
And their relationship was pretty neat.
Yeah, and like it plays with toxic masculinity stories while also telling like a touching gay love story, and I just thought it was like very unexpected, and like now I have a bunch of Authority books on my shelf to read.
Yeah, sure.
God.
I like Midnighter.
What about you, Sly?
All right, my favorite is I'll go with the one that is my favorite overall, just as is, which is Green Lantern, Last Will and Testament.
That's good.
But I'm not going to make that like I'm going to add a caveat because I already knew it was great before I read it, and I wanted to read it for the show just as an excuse to reread it. So the one that surprised me out of the ones we read was Flintstones. So I'll add that one. Which I wasn't sure what to expect out of that one, but I enjoyed that one as well.
Yeah, Flintstones
definitely.
was a really good time.
I think Flintstones probably gets my vote for best written. We're not doing fucking superlatives, but like I just felt like it was. I fully support your choice, Sly. I'm glad it made it into the list.
We read some pretty good written stuff though. I don't even mean that sarcastically. Like Death of Wolverine, I feel like was pretty well written. Doctor Strange.
Oh yeah, the Doctor Strange stuff.
Pretty good writing.
So what about you, Phil? While you're
You guys are gonna hate me, but I'm tied between
Wanted and Oh Man Logan.
Exactly. How'd you know? No, I'm tied between Keijo and The Legend of Koizumi.
I forgot we even.
The mahjong is just so good. Like I Keijo, I think I would like
that
more.
was a David recommendation too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Keijo almost is my favorite just because of the ridiculousness of like the shonen with the boobs and butts, but like just the how weird it is to have. Like, when I was reading through our notes again, to have the Pope fighting Hitler in the Garden of Eden, like, playing Mahjong was just... it's too good. I can't... There was nothing I enjoyed reading this year, I think, more than Legend of Koizumi.
Apparently making a sequel.
Oh, yeah, actually, I was looking at that earlier.
I think conceptually that's a lot of fun, but, like, the material itself, I wasn't, like, super into. Whereas, like, I liked Keijo more than Koizumi.
Yeah, maybe it was more enjoyable to read Keijo, because there was more stuff
I
happening.
also feel like the political stuff, like all the political leaders, speaks to you more.
Yeah, I enjoyed seeing, like, just, like, the leader of Ukraine showing up.
And I think also one of the things that made that book so special was hearing you explain like how all their jokes and moves were historically relevant and accurate. Like that's the kind of thing that's ridiculous, but it's super clever in a way that
they spent
like
a
you
lot of
wouldn't
time
expect.
on this stuff. Like each attack had like a story behind it. I that's definitely my favorite of the year.
So, what about you, Darryl?
So for me, I was torn between three things, and guess what? None of them are Death's Head.
Oh wow.
What? You were defending that forever? Is it because we were attacking it?
Yeah. Also,
Okay,
I wasn't defending it. I was like, I like it.
Yeah, you were. Okay.
So the three things, I think the thing that's gonna win out. Well, first the other two is I really liked Flintstones. That was just a really fun. I enjoyed the writing there. But the other thing that was really well written that I was really surprised by was Sabrina.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Because that was also really cool. And I was like, that's. I think the only reason that doesn't get first is just because the occult stuff really doesn't speak to me as much. Even though I really appreciated how close it was to actual occult mythology. But the thing I think that was my favorite was Doctor Strange back in the beginning of the year.
Yeah.
Where it was the comics
The Ben Franklin one, right?
What?
The Ben Franklin one.
No, the one where he gets to meet God. Like I really enjoy the religious stuff and the fact that it opened my world up to Doctor Strange more about who he is as a character, that he doesn't fight a lot. Like, I mean, depending on the writer again. Because he can, he fought his rival. But I really liked it was such a strong first impression when the comic opens up and it's him meditating out in the desert, reflecting on all of life and that all of it is sacred no matter what. And maybe it's because it speaks more to like the pacifist in me. But I thought that was really cool. And plus the fact that with the guy that becomes God at the end, that it wasn't about fighting him. It was about convincing him humans are worth living. Like he shouldn't get rid of them. It's like I really like that.
It's kind of like the kind of comic you would write if you were writing like mainstream comics.
This is going to be the end of our D&D campaign.
And
convince Eric that the humans are worth saving.
Yeah, and it's similar to my pick from last year's Swamp Thing, where it's like, hey, let's fight less and let's talk about these issues more.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I enjoyed that too, a lot.
What is everybody's least favorite book of the year? So I'm going to pick one that Phil was not there for. But, oh, man, when we read Crossed...
Hey, spoilers, this is my pick, too.
Oh, wow, you guys both hated that much?
So Crossed was our Edgelord August Part 1, and, it was just so cynical and nihilist, and it was very similar to Wanted.
In a way, it's weird because it's like, it's better than Wanted, definitely, because the message is more about, like, humans trying to survive and what would you do. But I was trying to think about... where I was like, why do I dislike this so much, but like enjoy other things that are kind of nihilistic? Like, The Road is a really good movie, but that is extremely nihilistic and pessimistic on its take about humanity. But it does it like very like tactfully and artfully, and it tries to be very cautious with the message it sends. Whereas Cross really likes showing you the heinous shit that happens in that book, and it likes shoving it in your face, being someone like, hey, guess what, this baby got thrown into a car, let's watch it explode, or like this woman and child get raped on this page, like that kind of stuff. Is just
I think that's why I liked it, because I'm so used to when people are
Jesus,
depressed.
Sly.
Everyone's always like, you have to make it, if you have to do something depressed, make it be subtle and make it like but I want, if you're gonna be depressed, be fucking depressed. You have to make it like everything is shit, life is shit.
No, because
shit.
sometimes you can go like really far. Like if you watch really terrible and like dark or scary movies, like Irreversible, like sometimes you can just go like so far down that rabbit hole, it makes you feel icky.
Yeah,
like it's one step removed from just watching actual snuff film.
I didn't read this, but sometimes feeling icky like is good. Like sometimes
but it wasn't this time.
That was for me. I liked one. I liked Cross a lot.
Yeah.
The thing
Let's
is,
say I wanted.
Yeah, Freudian slip.
Wanted.
I liked Wanted.
Yeah, and the thing is with Cross too is, and I've always defended Garth Ennis on the show, and one of our listeners who liked Crossed recommended I read another Garth Ennis book, like Red Rover Charlie, and I read a lot of shitty comic books, and 2 issues in or 3 issues in, I was like, you know what? Not even gonna finish this trade.
Wow.
I borrowed it from her, and I was like, I can't do this. It was even more cynical, but this time it was, instead of babies, it was watching puppies get ripped apart. I was like, no thanks. And it's just like, especially given, for me, like, even though Midnighter was super edgy and was my favorite, like, I think I have a really fine line of tolerance, and once I cross it, I like...
Once you cross it?
Yeah, I just can't stomach it anymore. So, Crossed was my
I feel like everyone has that threshold.
Yeah.
We're like, this
don't.
might be too...
Except Sly.
Well, I mean, do you watch videos of people killing animals and you're like, all right.
Yeah. When you brought up Irreversible, I had trouble sitting through. Yeah. There's thresholds for me. I think because I like the character work in Cross a lot, that made the... It feels like Mark Millar writing it, and they're all like saying "shit, fuck, suck my dick, bitch." I would be like, "This is a garbage book." But since I think Garth Ennis and Simon Spurrier did some good character work, I was able to appreciate it.
And I think there is something.
Phil, if you keep defending this, you're gonna read these books.
I'm just saying that there is something to be said for watching disturbing shit and being like, if you're gonna go with fucked up stuff, like But it's not real though. It's fiction. I don't know.
Yeah.
The thing is with Crust is I don't think Crust was the worst written thing we've read. All
Yeah.
of Sly's points about defending it I thought were completely valid, and like I get why someone would like this book. But we're not picking the worst, we're picking our least favorite.
Yeah.
And like, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
I
yeah.
get why people like it. I was not one of those people.
Yeah, I feel weird picking it too because I was a person that like I really enjoy ultraviolence. Like even back to my childhood, I liked drawing like cops shooting other people and just using red colored pencil and showing the blood. I'm like, this is so like gritty and nasty and dark. But then I just reached a point where I was like, it's not necessary.
What,
Like,
12 years old?
Or later
Mark
on.
Millar's age.
Like
reading.
if I read Wanted back then, I probably would have really liked that too.
Yeah.
I actually
yeah.
like Wanted when I first read it.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
God, how old were you?
I was in high school. Peak education.
Whereas I feel like if you get or you both read a lot of stuff like that to the point where it's no longer like cool because it's new and gritty and that you're like you shouldn't be reading it. And it's also realizing the kind of horrors and the evil that exists already in the world that you don't need fictionalized versions.
Yeah.
Almost fetishizing it. The good thing I will say about Cross, I don't feel weird defending my least favorite book, is that it doesn't fetishize it necessarily. Like it's pointing out that this is evil. It's just it's so cynical to the point where it's like this is an evil that is inescapable. Like this is like if everyone in the world turned evil, there's nothing you could do except to watch your family die, kind of a thing.
Yeah.
Where I'm like, that's not the worldview I want to embrace.
Exactly, especially now. So, Sly, what was your least favorite?
My least favorite, I don't think anyone will agree with me on this, but it was probably Old Man Logan.
I don't think we're gonna rush to the defense of it.
Yeah, it wasn't great, but...
I'm interested in hearing why you think that.
I
felt
think
that.
Old Man Logan is actually my least favorite Millar book out of all of them.
Really?
Huh. That's
Just because I mentioned it briefly by two reasons. One, everyone praises this book. Even now, I was looking up
People plays
information.
Wanted too.
It was like a handful of people on that.
But more people praise. Only a handful of people praise Wanted, and because there's always a smaller audience for indie stuff anyway. But Old Man Logan to this day, if you look at most sites saying top 10 Wolverine stories, top 5 Wolverine stories, always Old Man Logan on there. It's always fucking on there. It makes me fucking so mad just seeing that shit always consistently on there. And that's why I took it for granted. Like I was so blindsided by how bad it was because
just real quick, on Amazon it has 673 reviews and it has 4.5 out of stars. 4.5 out of 5 stars.
yeah. And if you look at like Watch Mode or any fucking site that reviews anything, they always say top 10 Wolverine stories or whatever. And number two, we gave Mark Millar credit with stuff like he writes shit like this for Wanted and his indie stuff. But when he writes for pre-established characters like Superman, Red Sun, and like his Spider-Man and Civil War, he does some respect to characters. No, Old Man Logan shits on so many characters. I know it's not the future, but so many people are like, this should be the movie future and stuff like that. And like a lot of people should consider this to be like the canon Wolverine future. It's so garbage. These characters are so poorly written, so wrong. This shouldn't be anyone's definitive dystopian future for Wolverine at all.
Is it because Cyclops gets killed right away?
No, I really.
We did also do the story where Cyclops gets killed. This year.
But I gave that book. I think I gave that book credit more than Wolverine.
I think the best way to put how dumb people are about this book is there were a lot of people that complained about Logan because it wasn't enough like this
my
book.
God.
Yeah. That's
Okay,
why,
so
like,
Millar is the worst person on this
Yeah, I
planet. Like,
No.
as far as obviously
the
not,
worst
but, like,
creator that gets money.
yes, as far as famous creators, he is by far the least talented person I've ever seen.
And he makes more money than probably anyone in comic books.
yeah.
It's amazing how shitty of a writer and creator he is. Like, everything I've read by him, and now it's a lot actually, unfortunately. Like, it's just some of the worst stuff I've ever fucking read. And you could say, it's just because you don't like his style or whatever, but his style sucks. Like,
It's just poorly written. Like I think Garth Ennis. I said before, Garth Ennis, Warren Ellis. There's so many people that do his style better with actual good characters.
I'm gonna just fuck Mark Millar's wife.
You're gonna cuckold him as the ultimate revenge, and then you tell him you taught me to do this. No, you fuck him in the ass and hold up that page to him.
Oh my god.
If you like Millar's style, there are writers who are objectively better at that style.
Yeah,
Like,
he's a bad writer.
He doesn't offer anything.
Because like I kind of with every one of his comics, I'm like, there's an idea there that I kind of can see merit in, but it's like his execution is so bad. Like, he is a terrible writer.
Pick any Mark Millar book and watch the movie adaptation instead. It's a general rule. Any Mark Millar adaptation will capture that like fuck you attitude while still being well written and still having good characters.
Yeah,
like Kick-Ass is a good example.
I wanted to say that when Phil brought up he was a terrible writer, it reminded me of when Fox first comes in to the restaurant in Wanted and she talks to the main character and she says, I don't have time to like watch you masticulate all day. Or masticate all day, which is the formal firm version of chewing, which was just like completely unnecessary.
He's a terrible writer.
So Phil, what was your least favorite? And keep in mind, Wanted doesn't count.
I wanted to say Wanted.
Wait, did I make that joke already?
No. And then my next thought was fucking Nemesis, but that wasn't this year. I really just hate him.
Old man Logan.
I think I'm gonna have to go with for least favorite was actually the Suicide Squad movie. I know I'm gonna piss off like John, I guess, but
it's impossible not to if you like good movies and hate bad movies.
It's like good stuff.
It was the most boring thing I read this year, so maybe it's not like.
Well, it's because you were reading a movie, you idiot.
Oh, you're right. It's like maybe there were things that like bothered me more, but
I thought you were gonna go with Civil War II, which was the most comic booky nonsense.
Civil War II was I was stuck between Suicide Squad and Civil War II. Because Civil War II was just dumb shit the whole time, but it was at least
It had
parts that were interesting.
Yeah, it had an idea behind it.
Suicide Squad was completely boring the entire time from beginning to end. Like one of the only movies I ever was just like I just want to get up and walk away. Like I usually just sit and watch movies till the end, and I can deal with that. But that movie was so boring.
The only reason I watched Suicide Squad and Man of Steel was just for this podcast. I would not have finished those movies without this podcast.
Yeah, probably not. And the thing is, I would pick Suicide Squad over Inhumans for my least favorite as well, because Inhumans did have a so bad it's good kind of thing for me, where like I was laughing at it. Where Suicide Squad, I was like, why?
No, that was so bad it's really good.
What, Suicide Squad?
Yeah, it was really good.
No,
I've seen that
I
film
thought it
3
was boring,
times.
too.
I'll watch it again.
Oh, this is like fucking what was it? Drumline? You watched like
No,
90 times.
yeah, and it's like
You watched
Nemesis.
Drumline 9 times.
Like,
Yeah,
it's
I think it's important to add
Drumline's
this to
a
the
fun
canon
movie.
that Daryl has seen Drumline like 9 times.
It's
starting the
not.
canon.
You keep increasing the number. It was just
No.
like 4 or 5.
No, there was when you first told us it was like 4 or 5, and then you're like, I'm watching it tonight, and you like sat there.
Well, it's 6.
Wow.
God
Now I need to
damn
see this
it,
movie. I
Daryl.
want to see what Daryl's
It's
so
a
hyped
fun
about
movie.
that.
It's not bad.
Yeah. Again, it's just mindless kind of fun.
It's no fucking Suicide Squad.
Yeah, that's true.
Daryl's mind is a bad thing. Oh, it's no Suicide Squad. You won't want to watch it over and over again.
Since I already talked about my least favorite, I'm going to use this time to... I want to ask Sly a question, and it's
Oh God.
like...
Will you marry me?
No, do you ever feel like it's weird judging a piece of work based off of fan reaction to it?
Here's the thing. I can't really help it because I've been entrenched in this culture for such a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine if you're a movie buff and you go see Citizen Kane and it's like a guy farting for like 10 minutes and people are like, "This is such a genius art." You're like, "No, what? What are you talking about?" Like,
Yeah.
it is so.
Like how I feel about
I
Kingdom
can't-
Hearts.
Yeah.
But Game of Hearts is like different because at least it has good gameplay.
No, it's bad.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it is good gameplay.
Guys, we're not talking about Kingdom Hearts.
Okay.
I guess you could argue it could be comparable because Old Man Logan has good art, so that's comparable to good gameplay, good presentation, but
Yeah.
not good substance.
Yeah.
But I don't think anyone. Maybe there are people that consider Kingdom Hearts to be like the greatest.
Yeah.
Game
Oh, yeah.
in history of mankind.
Probably.
But I don't think it's as when people say top 10 games of all time, it's like consistently at the top of the list. Kingdom Hearts. I don't know.
The thing is, I think and I know I'm very, very guilty of this. I've done this to Phil and Darryl many times, but I think for comics, it's important. I think fan reaction is really important because it's such a niche medium that so many people are like, I don't even know where to start. And if they start in the wrong places, it can turn them off the medium forever.
Yeah.
Because imagine if you've never watched a TV show and you're like, I want to watch TV. What does this medium have to offer? And someone puts on Inhumans. You're going to be like, not for me, and never watch TV again. And that's the thing is like, when people are like, oh, I want to read, like, I didn't like the X-Men at first, and my first X-Men book was Old Man Logan that somebody gave me to borrow. Like, no joke. And I read it, and I was like, I kind of like this, but, like, I don't need anything else from this. Like, maybe Wolverine's not for me. And then, like, after, like, 2 years later, Sly recommended other Wolverine stories, and I trusted Sly enough to give them another shot. But it was, like, more of an uphill struggle to like the character because I was exposed to an interpretation that wasn't good first.
Okay, you guys are thinking about the utilitarian side of it, but how about just like the simple like justice of it? Mark Millar, like Mark Millar is earning more and more famous. At a core level, that means this universe is not just. Like, it's like, regardless of if it's turning fans on or not, like it's just wrong. Like it's morally wrong that he is popular.
He's kind of like the cruel, corrupt capitalists getting money off other people's accomplishments. Because all these filmmakers and stuff are making all these good movies based on his name. Yeah. And he's getting all the name recognition and getting more and more fame himself when he doesn't have that.
Yeah, and it's like the art in his books is better than anything he does.
Yeah,
and that's another thing.
Useless.
These movie makers are giving him more name recognition, and because of that name recognition, he's getting more money to hire good artists, and he's taking those good artists off other projects they could be doing instead. So he's like sucking talent away and getting recognition for talent that's not his.
This world is just corrupt, and Mark Millar's the proof.
I like how slowly Millar's turning into like a cuckolding black hole that he just draws everyone to him.
But like that's also the thing is when I first started reading comics, I was recommended a plethora of Mark Millar books. Like that's the thing is it's his toxic injustice to the medium is I think like the big names that draw people towards these things turn people away from a medium that Sly and I have spent like a decade defending.
No, but this is just like when people like same thing with like I love Moby Dick and then Twilight is the most sold book of the year. It's like people also like shit. Like people have shit taste.
Yeah, but I feel like if somebody reads I guess this happens sometimes, but I feel like it's not as common. If somebody reads a bad book, they're not going to be like, all books are bad, unless you're like an ignoramus. But, you know, where like, I mean, think about, Phil, your first episode with us was Flashpoint. And I remember, like, a lot of the criticisms you had for Flashpoint have been levied in other books that maybe didn't deserve them as much because you're like, this is stupid comic book stuff.
Yeah.
You know, and like I think, and Darryl's first book on the show was Nemesis, and that's influence is clear.
That's his favorite.
It's awesome.
You know, like I think with this medium, it's so much more diverse than people think that when you see the like dumb pop culture version of it, the mainstream version that sucks, I think it does a lot of damage to like our reputation as like, you know, we like this thing, and everyone's like, oh, it's a dumb thing for teenagers.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the fucking. Like Super Mario, if you thought the plot of every video game was a plot of like Super Mario Bros. Movie or Mortal Kombat movie.
Well, it's hard because you could make the argument that the Millar movies are better than the comic books, so that
it's kind of a reverse problem where the comics are giving you a worse impression of the medium than the movies are. But like
if I had seen a Millar movie and then bought the book, I'd be like, oh, comic books are bad. Like
I guess comics are just bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, or it's like being introduced to anime through like
anime's a super. It's
anime's
such a
definitely similar.
Big one because it's so there are so many ways to be turned off from ever watching an episode.
Panty shot, I'm done.
Yeah.
Whereas like it's kind of one of those like gateway things. Like with comics, you have to be like you have to accept that and like get past it.
I mean,
and then
you can like complain about it and stuff. That's fine too. But it's like it's impossible to if like a panty shot or another girl complaining about the size of her boobs. If that will turn you off immediately, there's like no hope in anime. There's just some things you just have to be like alternate timelines in comic books. It's just like roll with it.
But with good enough shows, like that stuff shouldn't matter too much to you. Whereas if the first thing you saw was just a bunch of trash, it was like Tenchi Muyo or something.
Yeah.
And then you're like,
Tenchi Muyo was one of my first animes, by the way.
Yeah, and it's like I'm not gonna watch anime anymore. It's like I can kind of understand.
Yeah, that's so I think it's fair to bring in fan opinions when you're judging about their effect on the medium, but I don't think it's necessarily fair to bring it in when you judge the work.
I will say, oh my god, I so fucking hate because I'm a fan of the Hulk and it's just on the Hulk, so fuck Mark Millar.
Yeah, none of us are saying it's great.
Also, sorry to Tenchi Muyo fans out there.
Like me, I'm a big fan. I'm not.
Harem has its place in the world. It's just not that good.
So is that all we have to say? Does anybody have any final thoughts to round out 2017?
Harem has its place in the world.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Mark Millar, if you're listening, I know you're not. Fuck you.
This is my face when I'm fucking your ass, Mark Millar.
We still, joked about this idea, but I still think the four of us, or at least some of us, need to get a table at a con that Mark Millar is at and make a banner that says, "Come fight us, Mark Millar, you fucking cuck."
No, but I'm not masculine. I don't want to fight.
I'll fight him. I'll fucking fight him.
Oh yeah, or maybe we do that. We just get really drunk and then we hold up
He's
that
probably a cuck in real life, so he probably doesn't want to fight.
banner. Yeah, but he draws such manly stuff. Or writes.
While you guys are home, all our listeners, I want you to tweet this episode to Mark Millar constantly until he responds and he fucking fights us.
Learn to write, you piece of shit.
So a couple things that I want to mention is we don't mention these things enough, but you can follow us on Twitter at Divisive Issues. We have an email address, divisiveissues@gmail.com. And if you could rate and review and subscribe on iTunes, that would be super great. We've gotten some new stuff lately, but not enough to show up on the charts. So if everyone could just rush, that would be awesome. And just maybe send us a picture of it in the Facebook group, Oops, I Talk Divisive Issues, and then I'll personally thank you. And we also made a Discord where a lot of our listeners are hanging out, and we're talking about comics, we're talking about games. You get to see Darryl live read Wanted and get super mad about it. And we just launched it, so there's already a bunch of people in there, but if you want to come join, it's basically just like a forum group chat kind of thing if you never used Discord before. And the link for that is in our Facebook group. And I also want to quickly plug the same show that I plugged on the last episode, Oops. It's the new episode of Tales from the Static called Why I Hate Holidays. And it's a lot. I mentioned this already, so I'll keep this one brief. But it's about a guy's relationship with his dad. And I think Mark Millar should listen to it because obviously he has a lot of fucked up, weird, edible things.
Yeah.
It's about like the psychology between a father and son. And it's really, really interesting. And I highly recommend it. And you can find that and all the other shows on the network at comraderadio.com. So, yeah.
Cool. Any final thoughts before we wrap up?
No, let's
fuck
just
Mark Millar.
let's end 2017 already.
All right, thank you all for listening to Divisive Issues. I've been a Tenchi Muyo fan.
I've been a lot less patient with edgelord bullshit as I was last year.
I've been death by dysentery.
And I've been a Mark Millar character with this poignant ending. Only difference between a dream and a nightmare is how big your balls are, bitch.
Stay in continuity.